Ray Bear, he has no hair.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Cold War.
Whatever it is. They all blend.
What day is it?
Yeah. They all blend in together. Yeah.
Episode 290. Ray, how's your week been, buddy?
It's been raining here a lot, so we've had some flooding, incredible temperatures, some leaks, having trouble with the pool. So, but these are things here to challenge us, to make us grow, to force us out of our comfort zone, to become stronger and better people. So thank you, whatever higher power is doing this for me, because I'm loving it, Jerry.
The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences.
I prefer the pool not to leak. Anyway.
We'll stop doing that. I'm rewriting the Xin Ming at the moment. I found the original, for those people who don't know, the Xin Ming, written by the 6th or 7th patriarch of Zen Buddhism, Sengshan, in about 650 CE, something like that, 700 CE. Right. I found the original Chinese text, gave it to ChatGPT, and now it's giving me the line-by-line literal translation of the Chinese.
Right.
And I'm coming up with my own version of the Xin Ming written in my own words, which I've done before, but I would take the English translations that I've never really liked and would rework them to say what I think that it's trying to say. So now I'm taking the original Chinese and working with that. So that's
more pure. Yeah.
That's what I do in my spare time.
That's
translating ancient Chinese scriptures.
You're so cool.
Yeah. But yeah, that's one word for it. Here we are back in Cuba, Ray.
Yes, we are.
In the thick of it, with the story of how a man by the name of Fidel Castro came to power in Cuba. The last episode, we talked about his time in Colombia, the sack of Bogota, the Bogotazo.
Mm-hmm.
He was there for an uprising that got crushed, and the outspoken political leader, Gaitan, was murdered as part of that. And it sort of strengthened Castro's conviction that real change in Latin America could not be achieved through the ballot box. But it didn't stop him from trying to do it through the ballot box in Cuba, as we will see.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting because he's still a young man, and he is still
very young.
I think it's safe to use the word obsessed, or whatever the appropriate word is, with political thought and theories. And he loves sitting around the headquarters of their party organization house and just talking for hours and hours and hours. But at the same time, like you said, he's starting to say, you know what? All this yak isn't getting anything done. The people are still suffering. We need action. And I'll do the elections because that's one thing that might bring about change. But just in case it doesn't, he starts thinking about a plan B, revolution. So again, he's coming into his own. He's going to fall in love, but he's reading these heavy tomes. And at the same time, as inspired as he is, at the end of the day, a man either acts or he doesn't act, and words on a page can only take you so far. It's time to maybe take to the streets, but he's getting there. He's getting there. But I just wanted to ask you real quick, is it true to think that, because it seems to me, Castro has yet to meet an uprising that he didn't like? I mean, he loved to be in the thick of the things. He's been beaten up a couple of times. He's going to get beat up a couple more. I mean, we just talk because we're podcasters, but the idea of him being able to jump into the fray willingly, getting his ass handed to him a couple of times. I mean, for those who might not think that he's sincere in his beliefs, he certainly is willing to put his ass on the line for these very beliefs and helping other people.
Yeah, I think as we'll see, he's at a very young age dedicating himself to making Cuba a better place. Like, he's 22 at this stage. He's born in 1926. After he gets back to Havana from Colombia, it's April 1948. So he's 21, about to turn 22. A few months away from turning 22, already in the thick of it, in the thick of revolution. By the time he gets back to Havana, the media in both Colombia and Cuba had mentioned the involvement of two Cuban communists
Right.
in the Bogota riots. Now,
Right.
at this point in time, Castro wasn't a communist. There were communist organizations. There was a communist party in Cuba. There were communist student bodies and action groups, as they're called, like paramilitary groups.
Hmm.
He was not really involved in any of those. In fact, he was part of the group that was fighting against the communists, even though he had some friends that were communists.
Right.
And the real Cuban communists had stayed out of the whole conflict in Colombia. But then, as now,
Yeah.
anything's going on, you just blame it on the communists. Oh, it was the
Oh,
communists,
yeah.
right? We're
Yeah.
talking very early Cold War, right? 1948.
Yeah.
World
Yeah.
War II has only been over for a couple of years. Churchill's just given his "an iron wall has descended" speech.
Across the
The
line.
Cold War is they're still sort of feeling out the Soviet Union and the dividing of Germany. They're still trying to figure out the play.
Yeah.
The Soviet Union doesn't have the bomb yet, but already, if any trouble is being caused anywhere, you immediately just blame it on the communists.
Well, I think of it as Cuba is close enough and is aligned with the American political experience. You can call them a USA light. That communism is the bogeyman. Like you said, anything bad, you just blame it on them, or you just assume, or whatever. But it sticks. And the Communist Party, like you said, stayed away from this, and they're staying away from other things, and they're trying to be peaceful, and they're trying to bring about change peacefully. And it doesn't matter because they're getting a bad rep with everything that's going on, and there's a lot of violence, and there's going to be a lot more violence. So they can't win for losing. But again, like you said, he's not really tainted with him. But just like the Communist Party is getting these bad things assumed of them, this kind of the same is going to be happening to Castro just because of the friendship. So again, I'd love this next episode we're about to do because he's in the middle of a transformation. He's reading these books and he's thinking, you know what, it's time to do something. So we're about to see this very brave young man enter a larger stage, and he's eager for it. He's not afraid. He's ready to go. And I just think it's kind of cool. As you probably know, I didn't know anything about Castro before you came along, and I've been like, nah, Castro, whatever. You know, one of the many. No, this guy. I don't. There's a lot to admire about him, and we're going to see how sincere he is.
So the general secretary of the student union at the University Havana at the time, Alfredo Guevara, no
Hmm.
relation to Che, he was the best known communist militant on campus,
Right.
was on good terms with Fidel. After all of this news broke and Fidel came back and people were saying, hey, other communists were saying, hey, this guy's giving us a bad rap and he's not even a member of our group. Alfredo was like, Fidel,
Yeah.
he likes to cause trouble. He's out there in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Castro's political hero Eddie Shabazz, the leader of the Orthodox Party, was still alive and was a candidate in the upcoming presidential elections to be held on the 1st of June
Yes.
1948.
Here we go.
Castro campaigned for Chibas, went on tour with him, sometimes acted as the warm-up speaker for him. But the government's candidate for the presidency, the former Labor Minister Carlos Priot,
Hmm.
won the election by a comfortable margin.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just saw Chibas as someone who was just too unpredictable. And I don't know about Australia, but in America, we take our elections very seriously. The last thing we would ever do is elect someone who is spontaneous, who is unpredictable, who goes against the norm. We just find that kind of thing unsettling, and
Never.
therefore
Would never happen.
we don't vote for
Yeah.
people like that. No, but I think Priyo was
No.
seen as the safer bet. Go ahead, sorry.
Stable geniuses.
Stable.
Very stable geniuses.
Right.
That's what you like to vote for.
A room full
Over
of
there.
adults is what we seek
Mm,
in our political
Mm.
elections. I'm done now.
mm, mm. During the political campaign, Castro started accusing police officers of corruption, and this led many police to see him as a dangerous enemy. He starts to build a reputation outside of university circles now as a troublemaker.
Yeah.
And they start looking for opportunities to retaliate against Castro. A week after the presidential election, a police sergeant in Havana was shot dead. And according to police, before he died, he identified Castro as the guy who pulled the trigger.
Yes.
Another student was produced who claimed to be a witness, also identifying Castro as the gunman. Castro was arrested and claimed that the allegations were fabricated to discredit him. Fortunately for him, the witness changed his story before the trial began. He said he'd been bribed by police
Right.
to accuse Castro, and the judge dismissed the case. But here we are, already in 1948, Castro's got a target
Yes.
on his back
Yes.
by the police and the government. He's already seen, he's 22 years old, he's already seen as being a firebrand, a troublemaker, and somebody they need to keep a close eye on, if not take care of.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but the police handbook in Havana has only got 2 pages. Page 1 is you try to, set the guy up for the fall. And if that doesn't work, page 2, you shoot him. So hopefully Castro knows now that, when the cops are gunning for you, they don't have a lot of patience. There's not a lot of sophistication. They tried this. He better watch his ass from now on out.
Over the summer of 1948, Havana was relatively peaceful, but when the students returned to university in September, trouble flared up again. The government had used the quiet season to raise bus fares on the National Bus Company, which had a significant impact on the working classes and the students who relied on bus transport. And it led to violent protests organised by students and trade unions. They set several buses on fire, and Castro was smack bang in the middle of all of this. And the story behind this is pretty interesting. How much research did you put into the whole bus fare incident?
I think the word research is a little strong.
You've never heard that word before?
I've
what
read
is that word?
I've read of it, but
Is that
but
Latin? Is it
I
some
think it
sort
is.
of
I think
dead
it is.
language?
I
that
think
I've-
most people, again, you keep using these older words that none of us use, and you don't look cool. So, but if you want to tell the story, go ahead.
Pretty interesting story. So Havana had an old trolley system, trolleys,
Right.
as the public transport system. And they were long in the tooth, hadn't been upgraded in a long time. Infrastructure was a little bit crappy.
Sure.
So Cuba's new president, Prio, decided to throw them all out and upgrade them with a spanking new bus network.
Awesome.
Now, when I say he decided that, I think it's likely that there was a fair amount of pressure applied to him to do this. So, of course, as you said earlier on, Cuba at this stage is still pretty much an American colony.
Yeah.
American businessmen are looking for opportunities to make money out of Cuba if they have businesses on the mainland and they're looking for new markets. They're going to Cuba and going, oi, why don't you upgrade this or spend that or do this? And this whole bus thing revolves around an American businessman named William Pawley, Pawley.
Right.
Now, Pawley's an interesting character. He was involved in setting up the Flying Tigers group
Oh,
in
wow.
World War II that we've talked about. The AVG, the American Volunteer Group of fighter pilots that were assisting the Chinese against the Japanese
The
in World War
nationalists.
II.
Yeah.
He wasn't a pilot, though. He and his brothers assembled the planes
They're the middleman.
that the Flying Tigers
Right,
used.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So Paulie's father had been a wealthy businessman in Cuba. And when Paulie was young, he attended private schools in Havana. Then he returned to the US, studied at the Gordon Military Academy in Georgia.
Right.
In the late 1920s, he returned to Cuba, became president of the National Cuban Airlines,
Wow.
which he then sold to Pan American Airlines in 1932. Then in 1933, he moved to China, where he became president of the China National Aviation Corporation,
Right.
which he then sold out to Pan American Airlines
Oh.
a few years later.
Huh.
Then he assembled aircraft for the Chinese nationalist government. Then he set up the Hindustan African Limited Company in India in 1940.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1941 got involved in building planes for the Flying Tigers. He was
Wow.
appointed by Truman as US ambassador to Peru in 1945, then the US ambassador to Brazil in 1948. And during this time, he became an FBI informant and was ratting out
Right.
anyone that he thought was in league with the communists.
Or he didn't
He was
like.
an active member of the
Yeah.
Republican Party, very close friend of Dwight Eisenhower and CIA Director Allen Dulles.
Mm-hmm.
Was later involved in the CIA operation to overthrow the Guatemalan government of Arbenz in 1954 when Arbenz threatened to reform the United Fruit Company.
Right.
So getting back to Cuba, Paulie at the time was the boss of Miami's bus system, and Prio decided that he was going to rip up Havana's trolley system and
Right.
replace it with buses to be supplied by William Paulie. And Prio guaranteed Paulie a minimum 8-cent fare for 25 years. Now, he was basically privatizing the public transport system.
Right.
And the fares had traditionally been 6 cents. So 8 cents was a 30%, 33% increase in bus fares. And that 2 cents was a big deal for working class people and students in Havana. It was basically lunch money.
Right.
They couldn't afford to pay that extra 2 cents. So hence the riots.
Right. Yeah, because that's how everybody
So
gets around. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Castro and his friend Justo Fuentes had a regular 15-minute slot on a radio station, and they used their broadcast to create discontent over the bus fares. The government was scared off. They were fearing riots on the scale of the Bogotazo, and they backed off and cancelled the fare increase briefly. They tried again a few months later.
So the people won.
So
yeah.
the
This is
people
awesome.
won temporarily. Yeah. Because,
That's
in
a
part,
win.
Castro made a big deal out of it.
Yeah. I can't help but notice that two guys, and I don't know, but two guys getting together, once or twice a week and getting on microphones and talking and agitating people. Don't they have anything better to do? Or is that is that as good as it gets for these guys? That's kind of sad. Really.
What are
if
they
you think
wasting their lives just talking about shit? No one cares
you would
about
think, right.
history. Who cares?
But in this instance, it paid off. Like you said, the government, well, okay, we don't, all right, we're backing down. So again, but this goes back to what we were saying earlier about Castro going, yeah, words are nice, theories are nice, cool discussions, words, rhetoric. Action is what we need. And here was action taken, and it worked out for the people for now.
On the 11th of October 1948, Castro got married for the first time to Mirta, the sister of one of his friends, another law student, Rafael Diaz Balart.
Yes.
By the way, she only passed away last year, 2024, aged 95.
Damn. Good for her. Well, the reason that we're mentioning this, because one, love finds a way. Everybody has, falls in love with something. But because Love Island is so popular, we decided to bring in more romance to the stories. And so we were going to go right over it. But like you said, October 11th, 1948, they met. I think she was a student as well. They fall in love. She's from a good background. She's pretty. That doesn't hurt. She's got good manners. She's worthy of him. And I think at this point, and I wanted to get your opinion, but I think at this point, Castro thinks pretty highly of himself. However that came about, but he's pretty cocky. So he's going to go for a pretty woman. But it seems that maybe he wasn't exactly a ladies' man before he met Mirta. I don't know how much information you have, but to me, he seems so focused on politics that chasing skirts wasn't exactly his top priority in college and at the university. Excuse me.
I've actually got a clip here of him talking to Mirta around about this time.
What?
You're my future wife. What are you doing, Lisa?
I don't know why he called her Lisa.
Call her
he
anything
couldn't
you want.
remember her name.
Right.
He wasn't really focused on
Names.
He wasn't.
Are you
Yeah,
mine?
yeah, yeah,
You're mine,
yeah.
right, Lisa?
Yeah.
Karen? Whatever. Let's go. Come on, jump in the car.
Wow, you look so sexy, Lisa.
He knows that's a playa.
Do you understand life? Anyway, how is your sex life?
Shouldn't he know?
So
Shouldn't he know? No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mirta's father was the mayor of Baines, a town in the Oriente province, which was the center
Right.
of United Fruit's activities in Cuba. He had a successful legal practice and was a friend and client. Well, no, a friend, and one of his clients was General Batista, who
Ooh.
wasn't living in the country at the time. He'd gone into self-imposed exile after his party lost power.
Right.
He was living in the US at the time. Mirta's father was not a big fan of Fidel or Fidel's parents, who he considered to be uncouth presidents.
Right.
Presidents? Uncouth peasants.
Yes, yes. As opposed to couth peasants. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, he had no problem with couth peasants. Couth
Love
peasants are
all
great.
day long. All
But
day long, son.
How do you find a couth peasant? It's hard to find a couth peasant.
I don't.
They have no couth. They are without couth.
Couthless.
Now, as you suggested, Fidel seems to have been pretty awkward around women at this stage. Very confident in every other aspect
Sports,
of life. Very
politics. Yeah. Yeah.
But when it came to girls, I mean, he had been raised essentially by Jesuit priests.
Good point. Good point. Who don't know a lot
So-
about women, right? Right?
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Probably very confident around underage boys, but around girls, not so much. Mirta was probably the first person with whom he'd ever had a serious sexual relationship. Anyway,
Right.
after their marriage, they went on a 3-month honeymoon in the United States, funded by generous donations from parents and friends, including
Yeah.
General Batista, who is rumored to have contributed $1,000 to their honeymoon,
Right.
being a wealthy friend of Mirta's father.
Let me ask you a question. I don't know about Cuban culture, so I'm not going to ask you. But Australian culture, are most honeymoons 3 months? Does that sound normal? Or I don't know. Maybe it took them that long to figure out how to figure out the sex, but I don't know. Doesn't that seem a bit much? Or is that just the elite lifestyle that we don't know nothing about?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I've only been married 3 times, Ray. I haven't worked out the whole honeymoon thing yet.
If you add up all of the honeymoons of those 3 marriages, do you get to 3?
Yeah.
You know what? Let's not worry about it. But they had a great time. Obviously,
No.
they had like you said, Miami and New York. I'm sure they had a fabulous time.
Batista, by the way, had been living in the Waldorf Astoria in New York, and he had a house in Daytona Beach
Not bad.
in Florida.
Not bad.
He was only there during school summer holidays, Daytona Beach, for Girls Gone Wild. I think he would go down to
He had a
that
camera and
for
a
Girls
crew.
Gone Wild,
Right.
and yeah,
Take off your top. Take off. How mad are you at
he
your father?
invented.
Right.
He invented Girls Gone Wild. People don't know that about Batista, but he was a crazy guy.
An entrepreneur.
The new Castros spent time in Miami and New York as well, where they stayed at a flat rented by Mirta's brother, Rafael. During their time in New York, Fidel focused on improving his English. He set himself a goal of learning 200 words a day,
I don't think there are that many.
and
Go ahead.
research was not one of them. When you learn English.
Sorry.
He also bought a copy of Marx's Das Kapital in a New York bookshop
That's hot.
and was intrigued that he was allowed to buy such a subversive book
Yeah.
in the heart of the capitalist empire.
Yeah. Yeah.
He also bought an expensive Lincoln convertible, but then didn't have enough money left over to cover the customs duty to have it sent to Cuba.
Right.
Had to borrow money from his father. I want to read an excerpt, Ray,
Right.
maybe to finish off this episode.
Sure.
This is from Fidel's memoirs, just talking about the progression of his political philosophy around about the time. He says, at the time I'd read many of the books published on the wars of independence in Cuba. When I entered the university, I came into closer contact with ideas about political economy, and very soon, with the texts that were assigned in those classes, I became aware of the absurdities of capitalist society. Later on, I encountered the Marxist material. I was already involved in political issues, but in my first year at the university, I hadn't gone very deeply into the subject that was called political economy, so I never even took the examination in it. When I decided to go deeply into it, I started to come across theories of the law of value and added value and the various interpretations of its causes. It was the political economy that was imparted to the children of the bourgeoisie. That's where I began to question the system. On my own, I came to the conclusion that the capitalist economy was absurd. What I'd already become, before I'd come into contact with Marxist or Leninist material, was a utopian communist. A utopian communist is someone whose ideas don't have any basis in science or history, but who sees that things are very bad, who sees poverty, injustice, inequality, an insuperable contradiction between society and true development. And I also had an ethics. I told you that our ethics came fundamentally through Marti. I was helped a very great deal by life, the way I lived and the way I saw the way I lived. When people talked about the crisis of overproduction and the crisis of unemployment and other problems, I gradually came to the conclusion that the system didn't work. The courses in history of social doctrines and labour legislation, which had texts written or compiled by people who had been educated in theories of the left, helped me to think more deeply about these things. One of the first of Marx's texts I read was the Communist Manifesto. It made an enormous impact on me. I started to see and understand certain things because I'd been born on a latifundio, a great landed estate, which was, in addition, surrounded by other huge latifundios, and I knew what life was like there for those people. I'd had the experience at first hand of what imperialism was, domination, one government subservient to another government that was corrupt and repressive. The Orthodox Party denounced those abuses, that corruption. But I was already to the left of that party. From that time on, I avidly read Marxist literature, to which I was more and more attracted. Within me, certain sentiments of justice and certain ethical values were already deeply rooted. I had an abhorrence of inequalities, of abuses. I felt that I had been conquered, so to speak, by that literature. It was like a political revelation of the conclusions that I'd reached on my own. I once said somewhere that if Ulysses was captivated by the songs of the sirens, I was captivated by the irrefutable truths of the Marxist denunciations. I'd already developed utopian ideas, now I felt I was on firmer ground. Marxism taught me what society was. I was like a blindfolded man in a forest who doesn't even know where north or south is. If you don't eventually come to truly understand the history of the class struggle, or at least have a clear idea that society is divided between the rich and the poor, and that some people subjugate and exploit other people, you're lost in a forest not knowing anything.
He's growing. You can just almost picture it in his mind. He's absorbing these books. How many times have we talked about leaders who went through a phase in their life where they just read book after book after book, exposing themselves to ideas, and their outlook is growing. And that's exactly what's happening to this young man right now.
And I hope that this is sort of surprising and shocking for Western listeners. I mean, I don't know what your idea of Fidel Castro is at this stage, but here, I mean, these memoirs he dictated to a French journalist pretty late in his life, 10, 15 years before he died.
Yeah.
But he's talking about how the thing that attracted him to Marxism was his inner desire to fight against poverty, injustice, inequality, his sense of ethics
Mm-hmm.
that I guess the Jesuits had helped him develop.
Right.
He was very strongly driven to help the poor and the oppressed, as we'll see later on in the series. Che Guevara. I suspect that that is not the idea of Castro that people in the West have been given, because we
Right.
grew up. I mean, certainly when you and I were growing up, where Castro was depicted in the Western media as just some evil tyrant.
Exactly.
But the more you read about him and Che Guevara, they were deeply, deeply passionate about improving the lives of not just the Cuban people, but oppressed people around the world.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not you believe that and take it at face value, or you think he's just making up this stuff to,
Right.
I don't know,
Sound
put a
good.
spin on it
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
his, whatever he was when he said this, probably in his 70s. And
Yeah.
by the way, if you read his speeches from the time he was in his early 20s through to when he died in his mid 80s, the story doesn't change. Like, he
Right.
spent his entire life going on about the evils of colonialism and imperialism, and what to do to improve the lives of the poor and the oppressed. This was, the consistent story that he railed about for his entire life.
Right.
So either he was, as I think I said when we did the Obit shows 10 years ago, either he was the most consistent liar in history.
For decades. For decades. Yeah.
For 50 years, the most
Or-
consistent.
Or, he might have meant it.
Who would get up and give regularly 3 or 4 hour speeches in
Right.
front of tens of thousands of people talking about this stuff
God. Well,
for 50 years.
yeah.
Or maybe he was genuine.
Yeah.
You
There's a
be the
chance.
judge.
There's a chance. Well,
Eventually.
I'm glad you framed it in that. I don't know what you Westerners believe, but here's a little glimpse into Castro. And that's consistent, right? Because when we were talking about Ho Chi Minh, again, communist terrorist or whatever, word you want to use, he just wanted his country to be free and not be subjugated or occupied by more powerful countries, by Western powers. The guy was like, just leave us alone and let us get on with our lives. We don't want to kill you. Please don't kill us. And this is the same thing here. Look, you've oppressed us for decades.
Get the fuck out of our country and we won't have to kill you.
Just get the fuck out. And again, so unless they're both lying for their entire lives, there's probably some truth to it. So no, I'm glad you framed it that way, because again, everybody, especially in the West, we need to be shaken up a little bit about what we've been taught in schools.
So I won't end there. We'll keep going. So it seems like the marriage with Mierta was fairly good, but
Until it wasn't.
Fidel was
Right.
not.
Sorry.
Well, Fidel just wasn't suited to the married life. I mean, I think
Thank
they
you.
got along
That's what I told
well. I
Heather.
think they loved each other.
Right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because you're such a revolutionary. Sorry, I love you, but I need to go lead revolutions.
I got to go save the world. Anyway, please continue.
Sitting
I
behind my
apologize.
microphone. I mean, Fidel was just too busy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can think of him as like a startup entrepreneur, except his startup was revolution.
Right. Good point.
He was rarely home,
Yeah.
rarely turned up to meals at home, because he'd be spending his evenings at political rallies or at party headquarters or cafeterias debating what should be done. If he did come home, he'd bring a bunch of political followers with him and expect Mirta to all of a sudden feed them all.
Not good.
If he had money, he would spend it on political projects rather than on his wife and home. He was just
yeah.
busy
Yes.
doing stuff that
Consumed.
didn't involve her and didn't involve being at home.
Exactly. Even though he's married, even though he spends time with her, but most of it's spent in politics, he does realize there is a future, and he's got to have either a future for himself, for his wife, or whatever. But I think it's really that his decision to go into law is like the modern priesthood. If you want to affect laws, if you want to understand laws so they can't punish you, you've got to study law. So he's at his 4th year at the university, and now he realizes he's got to buckle down. He's really getting back to studying the basics. And you mentioned this a couple minutes ago. He had actually missed a couple of exams for whatever reason, didn't take him seriously, whatever. So now he's like, oh shit, I got to not only buckle down, but I got to go back and make up for that. So again, even though he's obsessed with politics, even though he's got a wife going on, he realizes he needs to do this. And so he does show that he is capable of highly focused work. And now that's what he starts to do with his legal studies.
Yeah, and he manages to make up lost ground by lots of cramming, but still his real obsession was politics. He knows he needs an income, he needs a career, but really he's focused on politics.
Exactly.
So in January of 1949, the government again tried to raise bus fares. They figured, okay, everyone's cooled down. Let's have another crack at this.
Right. Yeah.
And Castro took center stage, led a group of people that hijacked 8 buses, took them to the university, covered them with flags and painted them with anti-government slogans.
Yeah.
Apparently at the time, the police were prohibited from entering the university grounds.
Yeah.
So they were able to go there in some sort of safety. But somebody let the bus company into the university grounds at night. They took the buses back.
Oh, shit.
Castro complained loudly about traitors in the university that allowed them to do that.
Yeah.
But there were more riots and marches in the center of Havana, people throwing rocks and stones at police. I mean, it sounds like LA. But not long after that, some drunken American soldiers climbed onto the statue of Martí in central Havana, and one of them took a piss on the base.
Right. There is no word. I know there's less than 200 words in the English language. I know that, but there is no word for what the Cubans felt at this point. I mean, whatever's beyond outrage, because this is our the guy who helped free us, and you fucking Americans did this. So they're out for blood. These sailors are about to be killed. Fortunately, the cops who really work for the Americans, because they work for the government, come in and save them, and they escort them back to the police station. But it almost got really, really bad. I wonder what Washington would have done if there had been suddenly 3 or 4 dead American sailors in Havana.
I don't know if you've ever seen the classic Hollywood musical On the Town.
Who's in that? Go ahead.
Gene Kelly, Frank Sinatra, Danny Kaye, I think.
Love Danny Kaye. If he's in it.
Danny Kaye in?
Heather made me watch a bunch of those, but that was years ago when I paid attention. So.
No, I don't think Danny Kaye was in this one. Gene Kelly and Frank Sinatra.
Right.
About a bunch of sailors on the town.
Hi, boys. Right.
It was made around about this time, 1949, and there's actually a cut scene that didn't make it into the official Hollywood version.
Of course.
Of this incident with Frank Sinatra getting his dick out and pissing on the statue of Martí, spraying it around,
right.
and then
the boss was here.
Gene Kelly whipped his out.
Said,
and they're crossing swords on it.
Which is why they had to take it out, because you don't cross swords. Go ahead.
It made it into the international versions of the film, which we get to see. But in America, it had to be to be edited out, censorship, that kind of stuff. So the Cubans were obviously outraged about this. The police had to intervene to protect the sailors. Actually, took them to a police station to protect them. Crowds gathered outside. And when Castro heard the news, he and some friends formed a guard of honor protecting the statue.
Damn right.
And they stood there through the night. The next morning, students staged a noisy demonstration in front of the US Embassy, throwing stones and demanding that the American sailors be handed over for trial in Cuba, which obviously wasn't going to happen. No. Police came to get rid of the protesters and beat some of them up, including Castro.
Yeah, swinging. Big fist swinging Castro. Yeah. So again, now one, I don't know, I want your opinion on this, but Castro seems the kind of person who was so wrapped up into politics. I think there was a part of his brain going, This is fucking awesome. This is awesome because right afterwards he goes around to newspapers and he tells a story. And again, a little bit of his name, is starting to get out there even more. But I mean, I just think he, to a degree, I don't want to push it, but I think he loved the political drama. And you get a black guy. Hell yeah, sign me up all day long. But he did go around to newspapers and tell a story. So again, this just inflames the people of Cuba even more.
Well, he's trying to build his political brand, and
Exactly.
he's also trying to, get the Cubans riled up so they'll fight against the corruption in Cuba, corrupt government, corrupt
Right.
police,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the involvement of the United States.
Yeah.
Now, later, Castro and some of his communist friends, including Alfredo Guevara and Lionel Soto, were not only criticizing the fact that Americans were treating Cuba with arrogance and contempt, but they were also accusing the Cuban authorities and the police of letting the Americans get away with it, being in league with it.
Right.
Criticizing the United States wasn't particularly controversial, but attacking the police, continuing to attack the police and the government and accusing them all of corruption was again just putting a target on his back. Cuba's a very violent place
Yes.
at the time, as
Yeah.
it had been pretty much forever, and so he was basically asking for trouble. Now, there were a couple of gangs, university sort of driven gangs at the time involved with the university student movements. They were the MSR and the UIR.
Right.
Fidel was loosely associated with the latter, the UIR, the Unión Insurreccional Revolucionaria.
Mm-hmm.
They were both violent right-wing gangs, anti-communist gangs. So he's friends with some communists, reading communism,
Right.
reading Marx and Lenin, but also loosely associated with these right-wing gangs. Because at the time, as he said earlier, he doesn't have a hard political ideology or philosophy, except the fact that something needs to change, things need to get better.
Yeah.
Cuba's a very violent place, so he needs protection. He's associating with violent gangs. He's trying to work out where he sits in the whole political spectrum.
Right.
He's not actually a member of UIR officially,
Mm-hmm.
but is hanging out with them, a little bit. And some of them actually hate him. They don't trust him.
Right.
Like the communists, they kind of don't trust him. No one really trusts him because he seems to be
Yeah.
a firebrand who's just doing his own thing, bouncing between different groups and just, if there's trouble to be had, he's out there trying to, make a name for himself and using whatever organizations he can to
Exactly.
try and bring about change.
Yeah. I'm not a part of you, but if we have the same goals, I can stand beside you for a little while. But you're right. It's when he names names, not only cops, but I think probably gang members as well. Again, like you said, he's put a target on his back and everybody's probably placing bets. How long do you think this guy will be alive? So again, he's in the thick of it and he's risking it all, but he's calling a spade, right? It's just that it's very dangerous to do in Havana.
Yeah, so, he's also involved with Chibas and the Orthodox Party,
Yes.
involved with one of these gangs that's sort of loosely associated with the government, and they're opposed to the Orthodox Party,
Mm-hmm.
which is a bit more leftist. So, again, he's got a leg in all the camps
Right. He's got three legs.
as a
Right.
student in his early 20s.
Yes.
The rival gang to the UIR was the MSR, the Movimiento Socialista Revolucionario.
Mm.
Despite the fact that it has socialista in its name, they're also kind of right-wing gangsters in the university scene. Socialista was just sort of a hangover, a bit like the Nazis with the National Socialist Party.
Right.
It was just a hangover from an earlier iteration of it. They're not really socialists at all. The founder of MSR, Rolando Masferrer, had been expelled from the communist PSP after the Spanish Civil War,
Mm.
and then had gone and done his own thing that had become increasingly right-wing. So both of the groups are anti-communist. Fidel's with the leftist party, Orthodox party. That's not really communist though, but he's friends with the communist guys, but not part of that either. So he's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
MSR still believed that Castro had been involved in the murder of one of their members, Manolo Castro,
Oh,
no
shit.
relation.
Right. So they're looking for him.
Never any proof that he was involved. He always denied it. But enough MSR members believed it at the time that he was either the trigger man or was involved in the planning of it.
Right.
So they've got a target on Fidel's back as well. And they knew that Fidel and Justo Fuentes gave a radio broadcast at the same radio station at the same time every week.
Right. Jeez.
And in April 1949, on a day when Castro wasn't actually in the radio station, Fuentes came out and was shot dead as he stepped out into the street.
Damn.
Fuentes was the vice president of the student union, the FEU,
Yeah.
was 27 years old, so quite a bit older than Castro.
Right.
And his death caused a huge outrage. And I think this is a turning point in Fidel's life.
Mm-hmm.
He's married, has a pregnant wife, and has huge ambitions, and realizes that this could have been him dead on the street. Should have been him. He should have been there.
Right.
He should have been assassinated with Fuentes. For whatever reason, he just wasn't there that day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is when he starts to rethink the gangs that he's involved in and starts to come up with a new plan of action.
Right. Yeah. Step one, watch your back. Step two, don't keep to a schedule. Clearly, that's not the way to go. But you're right. This is more than just words, clashing words, or a fist fight, or maybe a chipped tooth. People are dying now. So, if you're in, you're in. And he's got to, I guess, like you said, step back and think about everything. And how could that not drive him further away from the right-leaning, right-wing parties? Because he wants change. He doesn't want violence. He wants change. But again, everything is coming home to him now because his good friend has just been murdered on the streets.